Right, well, two tough acts to follow, like two brands that I've grown up with and absolutely love. So it's great to share the stage with you guys, and thanks for listening. There's going to be lots of squirrel references throughout this deck, just to warn you. But my name's Pip, and I'm the founder of Pip Nuts. And we make a delicious range of all-natural nut butters. Here's the kind of range that we've got currently up on the shelf. And they're free from things like palm oil. They're completely natural, so there's no sort of funny additives in there. They're also kind of refined sugar-free. So generally speaking, super delicious, but you come away feeling good about yourself when you eat our products. And, oh, I see what you mean about our purpose is to help people love food that loves them. And what that means to me is basically about engaging people with a new dialogue about food, that eating something healthier doesn't have to be, boring. And, as a brand, putting products on the shelves, we don't want to patronize people or kind of oversell our kind of health benefits. We believe that food has to, first and foremost, very similar to Paveen, taste absolutely fantastic. And if you get that right, people will come back. And in order to kind of get people to buy into healthier food brands more and more, you've got to rely on the taste and flavour to kind of really bring people in. So, we really focus on making sure we get the product completely right before doing anything else, before trying to kind of improve the quality of it, or improve the health benefits. But that's, much more articulate way of putting it all. When I first started out, it was just about 5 years ago now. And I really didn't know much about food and drink at all. So I was a theatre producer before I started up the brand. I was 24 when I came up with the idea, and it very much was a bit of a pipe dream, and didn't even really know anything about running a business. So I didn't really understand even what a profit and loss was, to be honest, when I first started out. And the inspiration for me very much came about through a bit of a kind of right-hand curveball. Was that, I was a runner, still run a lot, not quite as far as I did back then, but I was doing loads of marathon training and different marathons around the world. And yeah, I cared about what I put in my body. I was very much conscious of what I was eating, and in particular, eating absolutely tons of peanut butter. And I probably am the number one addict in the room right now. I could eat my body weight in a month of nut butter, probably. I love it, and I think that really has to come. You really can't, if you're coming up with a product that you want to sell into retailers, you've got to absolutely love it. You're going to be living with it for a long, long time, and I genuinely do adore the product. But for me, what I kind of found a bit frustrating when I was sort of first coming up with the idea for the brand is that nearly every product that I picked up in supermarkets contained palm oil, and I just felt it was something that wasn't being completely true to what the product was. And I think for me as well, I've kind of been over in the US, I've kind of trawled the Whole Foods, over there, and I looked at the kind of offering out there. There's all these natural brands on the shelf. There are things like almond butter, which didn't really exist in the UK, and I just thought, there's something in this product. Like, I just think it's so much taste and flavour, and yeah, also I'm feeling good about eating it as well. Like, it's really good in sort of protein and rich in good fats. So that's kind of what got me started. And I guess not really knowing what I was doing, I was working as a theatre producer very much in kind of creative sector. I guess my first dip into the world of food and drink was very much in my kitchen, so a classic kitchen tabletop startup. I bought a fancy blender, Robo Coupe, for like 800 quid, and I started making the products in my kitchen, which I'd pack up at the weekend as part of I was working part-time at the time, and put them into jars and sell them with my friend Poppy there at Maltby Street Market in Bermondsey. I did that for about sort of 4 or 5 months, really. And I always say it's like an amazing way to kind of test bed your product. I hear sometimes people instantly scale up to kind of mass manufacturing from day one, and which kind of puts the fear of God into me. And I think there's something brilliant, like you said earlier, about getting people to try it, test it really early stage, tweak the recipes a million times over, and get it right from that day one. And a market store, however, it's just such a tangible and easy way to kind of prove whether or not you really want to go into it. And it's not just testing the product. I think at this stage, it's very much also testing you. And I think, starting your own business, it's not something to do lightly. It's, all-consuming and amazing, but also seriously hard graft. And I think, for me, this was like my first step into being like, is this something that I personally want to do? And thankfully, people bought it whilst I was at this market. It gave me enough a kick to get going. And I went about scaling up the brand. So a little bit different to these guys, I actually decided to kind of outsource our production. So I started looking for a manufacturer to kind of scale up my kitchen tabletop products into slightly larger manufacturing facilities. And for me, what I was looking for is someone that really believed in my vision for the product and really saw the potential that I saw in the brand as well. And that I always think is one of the hardest bits when you're starting a food and drink brand is finding the right partners to kind of work with you along the way. And it's very much selling the dream as much as you possibly can. And only really once I got the kind of product perfected in the factories and really feeling and tasting exactly like what I had in my kitchen did I start to then develop the brand. And I worked with an amazing agency. And I think, today I think launching a food and drink brand into retail, I was saying earlier, like it is incredibly cutthroat, it's really noisy, and really the only thing you've got in those early days when your budgets are so tiny from a marketing perspective is to make sure your brand really stands out, really has that kind of edge and ownability, and Pip Nut definitely has it in Reams. I love it because we're all about positive energy as a brand. That's the essence of the brand, and you can see the squirrels kind of leaping forwards, all the fonts are leaping, and it's an incredibly playful brand to be able to talk to and use across social media and engage with our shoppers. The squirrel is called Cyril, and he's a very affectionate little character. Which led me to sort of raising the funds. So I guess the context behind all this is I took about 2 years to set up the brand. So this was about a year and a half in. I finally had sourced out the product. I got the manufacturing up and running, and then I started going out to try and raise some funds. So at the time, I didn't really have 2 pence to rub together. So I knew I needed a little bit of cash to kind of get it moving and buy my first kind of batch of product from the factory and sort of keep us going for a few months out the door. And I went and pitched to what felt like hundreds of angel investors at this stage, all of which said no, which was incredibly depressing, but actually in lots of ways I think a great thing. And I ended up turning to crowdfunding to raise the money for the brand. So this was about 6 months before I launched the brand. And crowdfunding, again, it's a great route to choose if you're an early stage business. You really can get a fast-paced raise, but also great valuations. And also you bring on, 100 investors that really buy into your brand. But it's not for the faint-hearted, that's for sure. It's, quite a terrifying moment when you press the live button. And I remember that feeling of worry that nobody would sit at the 0% mark the whole way through. But it thankfully did get some momentum throughout the raise. Hopefully it will. And this is the moment that it funded, actually. It got to the 100,000 mark, which was the 100%. I was working in a kind of co-working space at the time, and pure elation. And this basically unlocked me to be able to kind of start making the product at scale and get the brand out there. And about 4 months after that, this is the first product that rolled off the production line. It really felt like it was my baby in that moment. An amazing feeling when you've had a concept, an idea, and it's taken about 2 years to get out the door. And our first customer, once we'd had the production, was Selfridges. So Selfridges has been an amazing partner from day one, but certainly they're the sort of hallmark of any good food and drink brand. It generally ends up here, and it was a great kind of test bed for us. And we used Selfridges to really build a kind of case study for our brand. And now you can find us in about 5,000 stores around the UK. Started with Selfridges, but now we're in sort of Asda, Morrison's, Tesco, Sainsbury's, and also loads of really great smaller chains like Leon or Pret. You can see our almond butter in most of their products, and we're all across the UK now. And what I would say about retailers is, yes, they're really difficult to work with. They're not necessarily easy, and I think it does take a huge amount of time to kind of build your brand in those stores. And I think the number one thing for a food brand, first and foremost, is to build as much visibility as you possibly can in those stores. It's the first port of call for any marketing spend, is to channel it onto those shelves. But we launched with, this is an example of just Sainsbury's. We launched there in 2015, and it was sort of about 9 months after we launched the brand. And you can kind of see our progression as we kind of grown and sort of developed our space. And it's sort of, I guess showing this just purely to kind of demonstrate that it just takes time to build the credibility and the kind of the space on the shelf, but this 2018 picture is sort of our like perfect look in store, and it's taken 3 years to get there. And I guess just touching on a little bit how you make that marketing budget stretch and work as hard as possible. Well, PR has been an absolutely phenomenal thing for us. I think right now, people are so intrigued by startup brands. So many people want to do it, and I think want to also hear from sort of businesses and business owners that have done it. And we definitely leverage our story there, or my story there, of starting up the business. I think we've had, since we launched, over 1,500 pieces of press to date, pretty much every publication, and loads of influencers that we work with to try and build our awareness out. And it is one of those things that when you're trying to fight those big boys on the shelf who have much bigger marketing budgets than you, it's an amazing way to get the word out there. Likewise, we're very much a millennial brand that we speak to. Our core audience is sort of 25 to 35-year-olds, and it's our social media is one of our proudest things. We've got about 140,000 followers across our social feeds, all of which have grown organically through no paid spend whatsoever, just through word of mouth marketing. And the reach is just phenomenal on these channels. And again, it's that David and Goliath. You can start to leverage some of these things to your advantage as a small brand, and tell your story and really connect and be authentic. There's huge amounts of power in that, and something to be really proud of. And yeah, the engagement is really off the hook. And one of the things that I love most about running the business is just thinking that every morning thousands of people are eating our products for their breakfast. These are just some of the examples that we get over sort of 1,200 posts and tags of people's different creations. Some are quite interesting, others super healthy, others pretty indulgent. But I just love seeing this sort of level of engagement with our brand, and it's really helped build our brand as well. And influencers have also played a big part in it. Very much use them and work with them really to kind of help bring our brand and bring it to life through to their followers. And I think something not to kind of be overlooked when you're kind of considering what to do when you first start up the business. And we've done huge amounts of events. For me, getting people to try your product in a moment which fits the kind of moment that you want, something like a sort of nut butter on toast or something like that. And we've done all sorts of partnerships with Nike, Lululemon, Sweaty Betty. This was one that we did in the Truman Brewery, where we served over 5,000 nut butter topped pancakes to loads of people through a Nike event that they did. Stuff like this, it basically helps people salivate and share it on their social media and get them to hopefully go and buy it in store. And yeah, we're still a relatively small team as it goes. So there's 15 of us in the business at the moment. This was our first co-working space. We had 2 desks that we were working off for the first year, and we slowly built our team, and our office space starts to look a bit nicer over the years. And it's, for me, it really is the team that gets me going. Like, they are such a fun bunch of people, and there's such a tight-knit community that we have in our office. That I genuinely enjoy coming to work every day. And for me, I guess when I kind of look at how I want to build the business, like both of these guys, I think for me, I get most excited about how you can build a business that you genuinely feel proud of, that you're doing business not just in a selling as much as you possibly can, but creating a culture and a kind of ethical business that you feel is going to stand the test of time and have as lighter impact on the planet as possible. We've just applied for a B Corp application, which I believe you are also a B Corp as well. And those are the sorts of things that for me, as I look to the next sort of 5 years, want to make sure that we kind of continue to embed our values within the business. Oh, there you go. I'll leave it on that.
Thanks for that. You've done a lot in a short space of time. Yeah, it's brilliant. How do you, obviously you talk about all your customers, how have you identified who your target audience is? Who are all the followers and the buyers?
They're sort of predominantly, we're a bit female weighted, but generally speaking, 25 to 35-year-olds. We call them, which is a bit of a lame catchphrase, like healthy, active influencers, but essentially people that are pretty into kind of keeping fit, but aren't necessarily living and dying by that. So it's kind of more of a balanced view. And generally speaking, you know, they're the sort of people that probably work out 2 to 3 times a week. And yeah, we're starting to get a bit more of an understanding of exactly who our shopper is. I think that takes a bit of time. But yeah, we've kind of started to drill down into it.
And you said earlier that about not wanting to be, you know, that you're a bit strong proponent, you know, you care about being fit and being active. How do you, and not wanting to be preachy, how do you kind of try and kind of say that without sounding overbearing? Or
yeah, because it's really difficult, because, you know, particularly if you, like, say, even just look at your packaging, you know, there's a bit of sometimes a feeling that you should be talking all about, you know, this many grams of protein in the product, lots of like no this, none that, and kind of really sort of shouting about some of those health benefits. But and I think for us it's more about, you know, trying to keep it as stripped back as possible and not really tell people what to do. And I think that's really important as a brand, that you're not just forcing your opinion on them. And a lot of what we do is through kind of, you know, if you look at our social media, we're all about kind of showing different recipes and trying to engage people in like different ways to eat our products. And I think that's a softer way to kind of get across your message. And I think it's keeping it as light a touch as possible. And I think, you know, the brand, if you look at the back of the pack and the ingredients, you'll know that it's completely natural. There's no additives. It's just almonds and sea salt. So it's, you know, it is genuinely good for you. So it's almost trying to do it a bit on the sly. And I think what's kind of interesting in food and drink at the moment is there's a real push at the moment for that kind of healthy indulgence. You know, people don't really, I don't think people are quite so binary as just being like, I just eat salad every day and I'm really kind of healthy all the time. I think people, and I'm certainly like this, you know, you might have a salad for lunch, but you have a burger for dinner. And I think we try and place that kind of viewpoint, which it really is about having a balanced diet and eating real food and not diet this or low fat that. And that's more of our approach. So I think we just want to have more of a celebratory approach to food rather than sort of a restrictive, slightly negative viewpoint.
So obviously, as I say, you're in 5,000 stores, and it was 4.5 years you've been going. How do you, we were talking earlier about how it takes over your life. It's probably the case for everyone. How do you kind of balance that to running a business and keeping track of, you know, having non-work time? Yeah,
I mean, I think the first couple of years, for sure, I think I was a bit of a headless chicken. I think you work round the clock, and you know, when there's 2 of you in the business and you're trying to grow something, it's kind of a bit of an inevitable thing that it will kind of take over everything. I think for me, since building out the team more and having some more experienced people come in and that know much more than me, that's sort of allowed me the headspace and kind of capacity to be able to kind of actually enjoy my weekends and things like that. And I think ultimately there's only so much you can keep going at that kind of high level kind of pace. I think, you know, at some point something's got to give, and you've got to get a decent amount of sleep and make sure you're eating well and exercising, because those are the things for me that, and for most people, are super important. But, you know, it catches you out all the time, and definitely don't think I've got it right all the time. I think it still creeps a lot, and we're still relatively young as a business. So, and I'm very much involved in everything, you know. So I feel like there is still an element of, you know, it sucks you in a bit, but I think just make sure you get regular breaks so that you can get some perspective on what you're doing.
And then the final thing is, again, kind of thinking about supermarkets and cracking them, if you like. You know, you work with a lot of them, or are stocked in a lot of them. Are there particular ones that are harder than others, or are there particular things that you'd advise if people were trying to do the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the time it depends on the buyer that you're working with, and annoyingly, like, some just are complete nightmares and others are brilliant, and it's a bit of a potluck. And the good thing about that is that often they move around every 12 months. So if you've got a nightmare buyer, then you can at least hope that in 12 months' time they've gone. But, you know, I would say that don't try and scale too quickly into all the retailers all at once. Like, we actually were in Sainsbury's for 1.5 years, nearly 2 years before we went into any other major multiple. And I think that it really allows you to embed within that company, prove that your brand works, build your space and your breadth on shelf. And because sometimes you can be a bit kind of eager to kind of run from one to the next, and actually you could end up spreading yourself far too thinly. And you're right, like, you know, they all require some degrees of investment, you know, whether it's, you know, trade support or, you know, buying your way onto shelf or promotions. And, you know, before you know it, you could find yourself, trying to cut your budgets really tight. So yeah, I think try to go about it sustainably rather than just all at once.
Great, thank you very much.